Ready for the hogwash, gang?
When we think of the film industry on the Isle of Man, we immediately think of stunning scenery, actors we'd love to see here, directors yelling cut. But are we missing a trick and focusing too much on the actual production themselves instead of what goes on behind that and the potential growth that this sector can bring to the island?
So, when we talk about Saran Jones, you will always get the opportunity of people filming on the island because the island is a beautiful place. The island is used to having TV and film crews here, and the island in the past has been structured around that part of the media sector. And my biggest issue is this: film does not equal media, and media does not equal film. In the same way that, to use an example, blogging does not equal newspapers, and online content does not equal. There's a place for everything, but there is also a perception, and this is a perception that's an on-island perception, that film can be wasteful, film can be high risk, film can be short term, and all of those things were actually valid statements to do with film. There are aspects of the media which are long-term, sustainable, create long-term jobs. Those aspects are usually at the front end and the back end of a film production, but they can be all the way through other short form and long form types of TV. So you will always get a Saran Jones. The number of ideas that we get pitched about the Isle of Man always consist of, well, it was a prison camp in the war, always consist of, we want the next Bergerac in the Irish Sea. There is a whole lot more about the island, and there is a whole lot more about the traditions and the Manxness of the island that deserves investigation, deserves publication, and deserves credit. It's not for me to say whether Media Fund was right or wrong. It's not for me to say whether feature films is right or wrong. I think there can be potentially a place for everything. Our business model is around bringing jobs, long-term sustainability. You're at an island which is actually sat between two massive production hubs of animation in the UK and Ireland. Now, there's also the argument of people saying, you need a tax credit, you need something to attract people here. Well, you can come up with a business model that means that you can access an Irish tax credit, or you can access a UK tax credit and still do some work on the Isle of Man, in the same way as some of the feature films that went on accessed other jurisdictions' credits. So I think from our perspective, we came here in 2018. It's taken a while for us to acclimatise, be accepted, but we've had 15 animators, or 15 jobs, including animators, including editors. Those jobs have existed since 2019 and will continue to exist as long as we continue to produce on the island.
So just on that then, really besides just somehow interviewing yourself there.
Yeah, sorry. It's fine, and
But what you seem to think is that there was a lot of noise made about Saran Jones. There's been a lot of noise made about these things in the past.
Yeah.
But in reality, the thing is where that's a short-term sort of kick. a little bit here and there for the economy, but if you want a longer term thing, then post-development seems to be what you're saying is the better thing for you.
Again, you know, there's individual perspectives on this. You know, my perspective could potentially differ to somebody who ultimately has to make a decision on a capital outlay to put a big studio on the island, or to enable filming to happen on the island. The issue is, from my position, that the amount of time that you spend filming something is limited. So if you look at anything, any James Bond film, if you look at any Star Wars, you know, they spend there is much more time in pre-production and much more time in post-production than there is in anything else, because the filming bit in the middle is kind of the expensive bit. You know, it's the bit where your Daniel Craig's are there. It's the bit where your Sean Penns, or not quite the same list. Your Zac Efrons are actually in attendance.
So, but just on that though, your thing is animation. Well, at least on the island, your big thing is animation. So what? Just sort of, I suppose we should have done this at the start, but just an introduction to your company. What would people have seen that you're involved in?
So, Flix Facilities is a 31-year-old now post-production and animation provider. So we have, for a number of years, had a niche in children's animation, because despite what you say, whatever media you film on, whether it's film, memory card, there is a necessity to either dub that or edit that, or, you know, and I would even go so far as to say, when you're filming on an iPhone, on an iPad, you still have an editing process. We specialise for a long period of time in long form and short form TV, which things that people would have heard of that we've done, we are still doing. We used to do Rip Off Britain, we don't do that anymore. We do Songs of Praise, which is week in, week out, 52 weeks of the year. We did Postman Pat. Flix's background, or Flix's originators, came from a thing called Cosgrove Hall, who did the original Duckula, Danger Mouse. We work very closely with McKinnon Saunders, who are a stock frame animation studio. If you don't, I'm sure you might understand, but people may not understand, there are various forms of animation. So there's 2D animation, which would be something like Peppa Pig. There's 3D animation, which is potentially something like Shrek. And there's stock frame animation, which is the most expensive and ridiculously time-consuming type of animation, which is basically you make a puppet and then you take a picture of that puppet 25 times every second and move its arm a little bit. All of those forms of animation require post-production. We started as a post-production company. We moved into animation. We have, over the years, done 3 or 4 feature films as well, which we've invested in. So most recently we did a thing called The More You Ignore Me, which was written by Joe Brand. And it featured Sheridan Smith and 1 or 2, you know, staples of the British film scene. Mark Addy, who was in The Full Monty. He's been in quite a lot of things. And we also did a film called Starfish, which was a more gritty cinema release that address the issues of a guy with sepsis.
Yes, I remember that now. I do remember that being. I remember being on at the Villa. There was a charity night done for him.
And the guy came over. I think he's called. Can't remember. I always remember the guy who started it, who was the star of Da Vinci's Demons, and he was. So the two stars of it were a lady called Joanne Froggatt, who's Downton Abbey, and a guy called Tom Riley. I think he's called Tom Riley, who was the star of Da Vinci's Demons. And the reason that it was a big deal for us was that it actually showcased everything that we can do. So we started with a really handsome guy and ended up having to use CGI, having to use prosthetics, having to use various techniques because he lost arms and hands, and he was using it was such an emotional film. We also invested in that as well. So whilst I say that film isn't something that we would necessarily get involved with, we have done, like for the right film, it's worth getting involved. And I think that you shouldn't close the door to anything. All I would say is you should concentrate on the things that give you sustainability, that give you the ability to offer jobs, to attract jobs to the island, and to offer jobs to people who are creative on the island as well. And hopefully we're doing that, touch wood.
You're on they're doing dog gloves books.
Yeah, so
I remember this first being said, "Oh, this is going to happen," and then when we first met you, I was like, "I'm going to look up online," and it was one of these seasons where I go, "This is surprisingly quite good." Yeah, because you get that thing that you sort of wander into kids' TV. Like, I've got mates who've got kids, like got kids and you end up sitting watching it after like 2 minutes going, kids' TV is definitely different to how I remember it.
Yeah.
But like, you get these sorts of things. So this was one of these where I was like, never really seen it, put it on, I was like, it's actually not. Yeah. And there's the thing like the granddad who tells lies and
so, well, he doesn't tell lies. What he does is he makes he says he gives his grandchildren the world according to him. I'm not sure whether he believes it or not, but it's a great programme. It's educational, but so is Dog Loves Books. If you take a step back and say, yeah, Dog Loves Books happened because of the support of the Manx government, because of what, they have faith in us and we have faith in them. And, I'm not saying it wasn't a long drawn out process, but at the end of the day, we produced 52 7-minute animations. Usually, projects of that size, it costs £3 or £4 million to make. So the fact that we've had animators on the island as part of that £3 or £4 million spend is a significant thing. I think that where we've had an issue is that we've had a pandemic in the middle of everything that we've been trying to do, and our original business plan meant that we wanted 3 things running at any one time at various stages of production. What we've ended up with is an unenviable position of one thing stopping, having a bit of hiatus, and other things starting. And we brought the world according to Grandpa here to keep people fully motivated, fully employed. We're actually just finishing another project for the BBC, which is the second series of a programme called Tea and Mo, which is, I want to get the characters right, 2 monkeys, a mother and a baby monkey. The first programme of the second series screened around Mother's Day, and that will run and run and run.
action ape is in danger.
Ooh, ah, ooh, 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 ah.
T and Mo can save him.
Eh?